questions for you. Is the food that can be served here normally like in areas where there's cacti? Okay. And are there any native cacti to the northeast? Okay. Continue.
So, part of that 40 spot rule and or not parking in the front yard, which, you know, I look around town and I see a host of other places that I can name that have no buffer, parking in the front yard, parking right up to near the street, and yet we're creating a buffer that's going to, you know, kind of soften all that.
I know, I think the key word though is screening, right? You're not supposed to have parking in the front at all per the code. And the town reserves the right to do better. You know, we have a lot of locations that may not meet the code, but that may have triggered this requirement looking to the future.
Right. It could be that they predate that part of the code.
Yeah, and it says is
Right.
feasible as well, but
Sure.
Right.
Right, so it says if feasible, but it says you shouldn't have parking in the front, but you can have it if it's screened. So then, you know, it begs the question of what is screening versus, you know, some plantings. I don't know how far the board wants to take that.
Sure.
And to, again, with that plan, along the front there, that front section, we have 10 spots.
Mm-hmm.
And if we were to lose the 10 spots, we'd be one over the minimum. However, I think it's critical to have the ability to pick up in front at the entrance. And right now, we have 88 spots here. We originally were going to put them here, and we had read about the front yard or the parking in the front of the building on the side, because we know that that'll always work there, and it takes you right into the entrance. But those 10 spots, I think if we were to lose them, I think it really would be a disservice to that building. And what I would hate to see is people parking out in the buffer or whatever, if this, you know, was to take off. I'd rather have the additional parking and have, you know, adequate plantings and what have you to kind of mitigate that.
okay. Well, then getting into that, then there's the third paragraph under number 11, which is if you have a space with a lot with more than 40 spaces, it needs to be divided into smaller areas by landscaped islands at least 15 feet wide, located no more than 120 feet apart. All islands shall be planted with 3-inch minimum caliber shade trees, a density of at least one tree for every 20 linear feet of island. So if you're going to maintain the 42, right now we're just not, it doesn't look like you're able to comply with that particular
No,
requirement.
we're going to revise that layout such that, A, we can also offer additional turning radius for the fire company and yet still serve the maximum amount of spaces, hopefully being able to retain the 10 spaces along the roadway.
There's something missing here because it says containing more than 40 spaces and then fewer than 40 spaces. What if it's 40 spaces?
True.
Can you do whatever you want?
Take it.
That's a good question.
A lawyer did not write that.
A lawyer definitely did write that.
What, it wasn't this lawyer.
Wasn't this lawyer?
So,
Seems to be the case, yeah. We could look into that further.
All right.
well, and when there's, but either way, they need to provide
Tie going to the runner.
the minimum,
Right, so
one 3-inch minimum caliper shade tree per 8 spaces.
Well, you thought you were gonna lose the one spot because of the turning radius anyway.
I was going to lose 3, so now I'm losing 2 at this point. But we have, because we have 42 proposed.
Right.
We do have quite a bit of landscaping that we've proposed. Lots of trees, lots of bushes, lots of cacti.
Are the cacti going to survive here
They
with
will.
the snow?
They will. Get some for your house.
Does anything
I
about
mean,
exactly 40
I
spaces?
have
it's not
it.
gonna, it's
I
not
have
gonna
it open.
change,
It's-
like,
it's-
It
It
doesn't.
says, no.
Yeah. I
it says
didn't
fewer
think
than
so.
40 and more than 40?
Yeah.
Didn't have a former math professor on this either.
Board has discretion about parking ratios, but not something like this.
Right, this appears to be a requirement that has to be complied with.
So again, just so we're all clear, the 31 is a minimum. They're more than welcome to have more than 31 spaces.
Sure.
Yep.
But then the code requires just a lot of additional stuff
Correct.
if it's more than 40 spaces.
Right.
So then, logically, it doesn't require that stuff if it is 40 spaces.
Well, no, some of it is still required
Oh,
because
yeah, if it's containing
says
fewer than 40 spaces.
fewer than 40, then you have to have at least one tree per every 8 spaces.
Yeah, and I think we have
Are we counting cactus?
that. No,
That's not a tree.
that's not true.
All right.
Yeah, right, it's a shade tree.
Shade trees. That's what that means. Okay.
I mean, a big enough cactus could be shade.
Yeah, I don't, so on the parking, the over parking condition, I mean, it's really, we're just calling out the,
I don't see how you have that though, because I'm looking at 8 spaces and there's not a shade tree.
Well, I mean, I see, it's this here, right?
There's like a ton of trees.
Yeah, but
They go
I-
around the whole back too.
or
But
every
that's-
8, so that would be 5.
I believe this is intended to be like every 8 in the parking area so that people can park in a shaded space, not for the whole lot.
Well, then they should just be along the southern edge, really,
Actually, there's
because,
2 in the front, so that would be good for 16, I only have 10 cars there.
Okay, well, you can go
Alright.
back and look at it and,
so, that's comment 11. Comment 12.
Yeah, 12 was about the lighting. Really, the comment was really to try to make sure that these were downward-facing cutoff fixtures. And from the specs that you showed, it looked like they didn't really have, they weren't really shielded. They were just open on all sides. And if you're, you know, we were wondering if you were wanted to consider the, especially on like the wall sconce ones, if they could be just downward-facing without open on all sides.
So some of these, like we have these which are near the entrance, the one here on the left here, and those are there's not a lot of foot candles coming off of
Mhm.
those. We have some down lights which are underneath soffits, again,
Okay.
it's just effect.
Mm-hmm.
The parking lot bulbs and lamps, those are adjustable and they are directional. Some are round spread and the others are very directional, so those are along the edges. And we can give you more information.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's,
Not what you want to use, right? You wouldn't-
the code calls for if you're over
Right, it's commercial.
excess of 0.5 foot candles at the property line is an issue in the code. And it doesn't look like you're there.
No,
You're like-
I think there was, I want to be painfully honest, that it's.
0.6 over here.
Yeah,
That's what we're,
sorry.
I think that's what we flagged.
We'll
yeah.
adjust that.
Okay. Yeah. I know we found something. We just need to make sure that we're complying with that at the property lines, 0.5. So if you can make some adjustments there,
Mhm.
even if with these fixtures that you're proposing, if you're still going to meet the requirements, I will leave it up to the ARB to really ultimately decide. But if this is caused by the building lighting, then I would say definitely do it downward
Does
facing.
the property line also include the road frontage? Because it looks like the numbers just kind of disappear here.
I
Yeah.
don't think there's a lot of light there.
I mean, this is 12 point something, this
Yeah.
is 10 point
There's
something.
a lamp there, I believe.
it's supposed to, honestly,
So-
the numbers are supposed to go out until they get to 0, so we can see how far out the light
So
spreads.
I would say at the southern end there, you're going to have, if you continue the purple line, it's going to
Here.
go out into
That's the
22.
western, that's the western end.
Sorry, western.
I think
All the
that's-
drawings today are like 90 degrees off what you think they
I
should
think
be.
that's the
so.
directional line.
Okay.
Right,
right.
but I think when you submit the revision, the numbers should go till you hit 0 on all sides, because the light doesn't necessarily stop at the property line.
But if the light is directional, there might not be any light behind it.
show zeros,
Right.
Right.
and the lighting plan would show zeros.
This was done by RAB Engineering, so this is their business, this is what they gave us.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
but you can tell them to expand their area. You know,
I will,
They may have only cut, they may have stopped it because they know there's a light, but you can ask them to show the diagram
show a zero.
around it all the way down to zero, regardless, and they'll do it.
The last comment before the environmental was just on the aquifer, noting that this is in the aquifer overlay and that typically the town, what we require is that you acknowledge that and review section 145.15 of the code and include those notes on the site plan. Moving on to the environmental review, it's an unlisted action. We noted that it could also possibly fit a type 2 action because due to the reuse of existing commercial structure, but it's never been occupied, so I really wouldn't recommend type 2ing this. I feel like we need to kind of address it as a new use because it's going to be bringing people there. Right now, there's no delta. You can't take credit for like something
Right.
that's happening now and what's
Well-
proposed.
Secretary Van Millen, has this ever been occupied?
It has never been occupied.
And I don't think it was the occupancy, we discussed it, I think it's the fact that it was never approved.
Well,
That too.
It was never reviewed.
But just for
so-
reference, if you remember the 3185 project across the street and up a little bit,
yes.
that recently got approved again,
Yes.
that was a restaurant that burned down. So there was like an existing use happening. And for the
Yes.
environmental review, we were able to kind of take credit for the activity and compare the new project to the old use. In this case, it's really never been occupied. So
Right.
everything we're seeing, it's going to be generating cars and everything else is just
Considering
starting
a
from scratch.
new building from 1996.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think just doing a seeker review without type 2ing it is appropriate and is your safest bet. So they, like I said, they did submit a short EAF. That was the outdated form. We're recommending that you complete the full form, and there's a link to the EAF mapper for how to fill that out. If you have questions, you can give me an email or call me. But it's pretty straightforward if you've done it before. Just a couple of notes on a couple of items that are going to be filled out as yes items, including threatened and endangered species, including timber rattlesnake is going to be flagged here. I'm not really worried about this as an issue. We've dealt with it on the 3185 project, and there's no habitat on the site, so I don't think we're going to have to deal with worrying about needing to do any kind of endangered species survey on here. Traffic and noise impacts. I mean, this is in the hamlet. It's a use that's encouraged. There's other restaurants around it, but you are going to be bringing new traffic or new trips into the site. So, at a minimum, I feel just a trip generation summary would be appropriate just to present what you're looking at as far as peak hour number of trips, and not asking for a full traffic study again, because I don't think it's going to warrant one. But typically we like to review a trip generation and just to make sure the assumptions are valid. And again, this is something that could come up in a public hearing, but
Trip is in and out?
in
or-
and out.
Okay. So unless you're turning over the tables every 18, 17 minutes, I mean,
There's a rate for restaurants that the ITE has. I don't have it off the top of my head, but engineers that you're working with should be able to generate something based on the square footage. So that's it. Recommendations were to discuss the application. I think an increase in the escrow is appropriate just because we're going to be seeing new plans, and three of us all are reviewing things. There's engineering documents and septic information to come that Joe's going to lead, so I'm recommending for now increasing it up to 7,500. Referring that site plan to the fire company unless you want to wait for a revision, which sounds like you plan to do. Or you can get feedback from them now on what you've presented.
That would be the most prudent way. I mean, if they're gonna respond quickly, if they're not, then we'll do our own investigation on turning radiuses.
I mean, we're still asking for the turning radius and other info, but
They
if
may have different apparatus, so that's why I don't like.
it might be helpful to get the information now rather than you think you have it and then give it to them and they say, well, actually,
They don't have that vehicle, right? So
Sure.
that's an issue.
Yeah, I think if you, so this will be referred, and they're pretty good usually about giving us something before the next appearance, but, you know, you could also meet with them to help.
Is there a
Move that
contact
along.
here that you could
you get that from Secretary Van Millen.
I'll send it.
Yeah.
And lastly, a site visit, if you think it's appropriate to go
Yeah.
out there and take a look, and
Okay.
something we can do. So, that's all.
All right, thank you. Engineer Berger, anything further here?
Yeah, I think we do need, Aaron pointed out the survey, we do need an existing survey of the site. You mentioned quickly that it's flat, it is flat. So typically a surveyor would provide spot elevations because we need to, being flat, it's actually more important for us to look at grading than if it's steep. Because if you don't have paving at 1 to 2% consistently, we get puddles and problems with water sitting there, which is not good for the
Icing in the
public.
winter potentially.
Icing. And especially even if it's at 1%, which you'll be using, if 1% is not built with the proper spot elevations in the field, the water won't move and you will have icing. So it's important that if you have had the survey done, make sure the surveyor has provided you with sufficient spot elevations that you can do that, and not just a 2-foot contour map, which shows one contour through the center, which is meaningless. So I would suggest our code doesn't specify 1 foot, 2 foot what, it just says a proper topographic map consistent with the use. So in this use, it should be spot elevations sufficient so that you can design and show the grading on there that you can comply and make sure the stormwater drains properly. And I think that's important. Also, we already talked earlier about the septic, so let's sit there and verify that you're not over the 1 acre, because if you're close and you ultimately end up over 1 acre as you're developing, you're going to go from the Chapter 65 to a state-required speedies permit for stormwater. Not saying that you should, but if it's 0.9, it's 0.9.
Yeah, and it's what
it
parcel
is.
access has.
But
It's not, right.
yeah, the survey will be consistent, and if you have that, then you're safe. That's why having a survey done is important. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
I guess we'll take the site walk and see about like the trees, and then we could discuss that later, when do they take care of that,
Yes.
potentially if that is a problem. And then do they need to, just thinking of another project we've looked at in the last few years, do they need to communicate with the New York State DOT about the water draining from the site and how that will happen?
As part of the DOT permit for authorizing that access you have, they will be providing a stormwater permit, just like we have a Chapter 65. DOT has their own stormwater requirements that will show where does the water go. Is it all staying on the site and not entering on DOT, which is fine, or if it is entering onto the DOT from the entranceway, where is it going? Or is the storm sewer along Route 22 capable of handling that increase?
Right.
So you will have a storm.
Because you have, you're going from a site that's largely permeable to a site that's largely
Yeah.
impermeable.
Right, and our intent is not to let any water out onto the roadway, even though there is a storm sewer right there, because again, as.
And that's what you'll show with your report. To get your permission to use that entrance, they're going to look at it, you're going to file, you're going to get them, you're going to do this permit process, which will include a stormwater investigation for them. So yes, there is.
Okay, thank you. Attorney Polidoro?
I don't have anything further to add.
Any members of the planning board having heard from our consultants? Any comments, questions at this time? No, not right now. Okay, so then,
Should we get the board to give feedback on that?
all right, motion to increase escrow by $7,500. Motion made by Member Palmer, seconded by Member Roman. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. That motion passes 5-0 with 2 absences. And so you're thinking, right, we'll refer it to the J.H. Ketchum Hose Company, but not any, it's just not complete enough for
Correct.
anybody else. Okay.
Yep.
So a motion to refer the preliminary site plan to the J.H. Ketchum Hose Company. Motion made by
So move.
Member Sador, seconded by Member LaRobediere. Discussion. At least this way they can weigh in, and it might be that they might even say, hey, we need some more information before we can actually talk about this or that, or they might hear this and think, oh, well, if you're going to change this, then. But at least that, it forces a discussion, I guess. So.
Yeah.
Potentially.
I would
Any
also,
further discussion?
if you're willing to do it, I think it would be helpful if you would just respond to the comments in your next submission, so it's kind of the record that helps us out.
We'll respond to each comment for you.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Just, do the board members want to give any guidance at this point on the parking in the front? And as they go back and they take another look at their project?
Well, let's finish the motion for the fire company.
Oh, yeah.
Anything further on that motion? Seeing nothing further, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say no. Okay, so if you could send that along to
I'll send it
the
to
fire company.
fire
I
company.
guess include this picture. Pass it down. So
Yes,
you have
please.
the official one. All right. One more vote here, and then we can discuss anything further. Consider scheduling a site visit. Well, we're going to be down in the southern part of town on Saturday, the 7th at 8 a.m. Do we want to go up the Dover Plains? Another day, another
Yeah, I don't know
time.
if I can make that one.
Flexible.
I'm good that day.
Okay.
I can do it the same
Man, I
day.
just don't know how long we'll be down there.
Right.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to do it on a different day.
I mean, it's a big,
At least 2 hours.
It's a big site, yeah.
yeah.
I'm traveling the afternoon.
Maybe it'd be
so-
good if we force it to be like it has to be 2 hours.
Yeah, you could do that.
All right.
Schedule for 11. Gives you time.
It'll take an hour to go across town. All right. Motion to schedule a site walk for planning board members and consultants for, I mean, this obviously has to work for you, Saturday, September 7th at 10:15 a.m.
That-
15 minutes.
We're not going to.
10:30 a.m. All right.
Wait, we're doing 8 o'clock at the other place.
Yeah.
And so you're saying 10:30 for this one?
Yes.
Okay.
And you make it or you don't. Motion made by
So moved.
Member Palmer, seconded by
Second.
Member Sador. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of a site walk for, let me just make it clear what we're doing. Site walk for 3186 Route 22 project, September 7th, 10:30 a.m. for members of the planning board and our consultants. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say no. That motion passes 5-0 with 2 absences. So, just would like to see the site and walk around, and you could have yourself or some other representative there. And, okay. All right. All right. Anything
The inside?
that would be great.
You said the site, I'm just,
Yeah, the building's on the site.
yes, it is.
So, can we go into a completed building that doesn't have a CO?
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
All right. Yeah, Attorney Polidoro, you wanted to add something?
Oh, I just wanted to know if any of the board members wanted to give preliminary thoughts on the parking in the front, so he has some guidance when he goes back to the drawing board.
Does our code say you can't,
Sort of.
or it just says we really would prefer you didn't?
So it says, the code is a little contradictory.
Sure.
All off-street parking shall be located behind or to the side of the principal building, except as provided below.
Okay.
And then below,
This is, what is? where are we looking at?
4538.
NTNY. What,
145-38,
There you go. Now scroll down to 4.
4.
you go.
A1. Yep, right there.
So 1 says it shall be located to the side or behind, except as set forth below. And then below, it says parking can be anywhere if it's screened from public roads and adjoining properties.
subsection, okay, A4 is 8, so 2 and 3. So this 2 and this 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
That too. and
Within
that
any
too.
district, parking may be located anywhere on the site if it's screened from the public roads and adjoining properties. Okay.
So to me, I mean,
Screening sounds like a fence or a hedge or,
something stronger.
right. And that would block people's view of your restaurant, which doesn't sound like a very good idea. Okay. But I guess you could. And then what, with this,
It's in the
is this in the HC district only?
It's not.
This is not in the HC district. Okay, so that's not applicable.
So it's really just how you read 1 and 2 together.
I mean, we have provided a buffer, we have provided some landscaping.
Right.
We didn't want to go overboard to create a forest to hide the building either at this point.
Sure.
because we spent so much in
Oh wait, screening is defined, look at that.
aesthetically make it look better.
Location of structures in such a manner that they are not visible, as defined herein, from a public road or any other public place during the summer months, and no more than partially visible in winter. Objects or structures may be screened by topography, vegetation, or other structures not required to be screened. So, I guess that means you're not supposed to have the parking in front of the building.
But this has to do with screening structures, whereas the idea in the code here is to screen the parking.
Well, right, but that was just the
But it's the-
That's
definition.
the definition of screen and screening for the
Yeah,
purposes
yeah.
of this code.
So I guess it'd be up to the applicant to make the case as to why what you've provided is adequate, or to rethink the parking.
And I get what you're saying. Directly across the street, there's parking in front of the building.
Right there.
No, I'm conceding your point.
Yep.
I know, I'm not a good poker player, so anyone want to sign up for Saturday game? Think about it.
Is that Four Brothers?
That is,
So,
Yeah.
Four Brothers, I mean,
Yeah.
CVS down the road, Subway.
when we did the one across the street, though, we.
Well,
I
the
think
building's
we
on
had-
the property line. You
Yeah.
can't put anything in front of it.
True.
I mean,
Off to the side.
that worked out well.
Are you talking about Kelly's?
No,
No,
the
no.
No, the
3185.
3185.
Which is being under construction right now, yeah. Mhm.
But yeah, Kelly's, it's on the side.
Well, it's on the side, but there's no buffer. And
Still visible from the road. It doesn't, it can be visible from the road.
It can be visible on the side.
Right.
but it's,
So if you want to put it in front, you got to put a giant hedge.
Well, I mean, the concept, right, is to try and
Understand?
build out, bringing everything closer to the road, so.
I mean, what other examples are there? I mean, I guess that's really it.
you have.
Well, there's Plaza,
you have
obviously.
McDonald's,
22.
Dunkin' Donuts, CVS Plaza.
Let's see.
When we did Dollar General, they're on the side.
Freshco 22 is on the side. Well, I guess it depends. I mean,
Depends on what you call the
what's
front.
what's the front?
But in the front, they have screening. They have
They have
that outward
screening.
seating and plants.
True. Clearly in front of the plaza.
Yeah.
Maybe this is in front of McDonald's.
I don't see a bush.
In front of Dunkin' Donuts.
Four Brothers.
Oh yeah, we've got Four
Well,
Brothers.
Four
was the
Brothers
first
was an
example.
ice cream. It was an ice cream place back in the
Guess
70s.
make the
We have a big
make
buffer.
make the case. I guess make the
Yeah.
case and we'll see. But the code doesn't say if you have a buffer it's okay. So I don't know that really helps.
Well,
But
but I think it lends on the board's discretion.
It says
Well,
screening, and the idea is to try and clean up some of the past sins of developers.
sure.
Yeah.
There's a lot of examples of parking in front of buildings.
Yeah,
I don't think anyone
especially
can
with
argue there isn't.
restaurants.
Yeah.
It's pretty much
Right.
All, you just showed a bunch of
Yes.
examples.
So
mean,
And I think the
I'm
idea
not
of the
saying,
restaurant is you
I
don't
don't think,
want.
no one's saying right now, take the parking
At
lot.
the end of the day, the last thing I want is to have 31 or 32 spots, and then you have double parking with traffic
Yeah.
going out into the road, or people trying to get in, and someone's waiting for someone to move out of a spot. It's all like a nightmare, especially on that one lane, each direction type road. you know.
I mean, there's some cachet in the idea that it's so great you can't even get a parking spot there, so,
That's that's our intent.
okay.
And also, just to note, the building's there already, and they want to use that existing footprint and floor
Mhm.
area, and it is where it is, which has an area in front that would be great for parking.
And if you build 40 spots, you can do anything you want, so.
Yeah, if the building wasn't there yet,
Exactly 40.
That'd be different.
if the building wasn't there yet, and we were talking about this as a new vacant site with, we could talk about the parking on the side and the back, but
39 and a half.
Well,
I don't know, I just wanted to call it out. It's in the code. and
Yes.
That's what we
Does
did. So.
All right, so you're probably not going to have anything new for us in the next 2 days.
wait, I actually have a question, though.
Okay.
Joe, earlier we were talking about the ability to put parking over the septic field.
Here.
Is this one of those situations, if they could actually make a bigger parking lot in the rear, that it might make sense to move the
Probably.
parking to the back?
If it was done in 96, it was probably done with 4-inch pipe,
Oh,
not chambers. Chambers weren't common in 96.
so you don't think it would meet
So
those
it's most likely a
requirements?
4-inch PVC pipe, which would crush, and you'd have to replace all those pipes.
Okay,
It's possible they have chambers. If they did no, if they did chambers in 96, they would be concrete. That's what we didn't. So it's possible if it's concrete chambers, you could put them on top. But not if it's over 1,000
Didn't
gallons.
the previous
because
owner
it's
own like a
PVC.
septic company?
So you have two problems. If it's
Like,
over
not a septic,
1,000
like,
gallons,
They sold, I
DEC
thought.
won't allow it.
Anyway.
Nobody
Alright.
knows what he did.
No, DEC will not let you touch
Why?
any system under a parking
Where's
lot
the
if it's
water
over
coming
1,000
from?
gallons. That's a no, a zero.
The pipe.
No, I mean, from the water company?
Right now, we're good.
okay, well,
I mean,
so
the
that
pu-
was
the
just a
wa-
thought,
so-
if you
Yeah.
could build
I mean,
over
I-
the one in the back.
Something else, thank you, Secretary Van Millen. Something else brought up is the water pipe. I mean, just confirm it's on your side of the roadway. It should be because of that other, right, because you know it is, yes. I guess-
Yeah, it's on the plan.
Right,
Tony Brook had the
Okay.
problem, it has to
yeah.
cross.
We had there was an issue with another project.
Yeah. That's all?
All right. Anything further regarding this? So just as I was saying, you're not going to meet the deadline for anything for 2 days from now. The next deadline is September 18th.
That's another point, though, if we've missed. If you have to connect to the water, they need to go get approval from the water company.
I think we have a connection right into water line in
It
the,
might be there
Okay.
from 1996.
it's in the back.
But the building's never,
It came around- it came
they
around
actually
this-
built the water into it? Okay, we can find out and see if the
Yeah.
toilets are working.
Your working site visit.
Okay.
Oh, no, there's no toilets in the building.
Any water?
You'll need those. So September 18th is the next deadline. Do you think you'll be meeting that deadline for anything of substance?
We will have some substance.
Okay.
We'd like to keep the conversation on.
Sure. So then that would be the October 7th meeting, but the deadline is September 18th. And just one note, so the picture you submitted tonight, that's great, but technically it's past the deadline but we have it, so thank you.
Yep.
I mean, I can take them back and resend.
No, it's
So I'll
fine.
put it,
You've met you've met the deadline for the September 16th meeting, which you won't be on the agenda for.
no, even
But
if
just,
you,
no, we've had applicants in the past who show up to the meeting and say, oh, I've got this, this, and this now, and it's like,
Packets.
well, we got to review it.
And the sad truth was the deadline came and I submitted a couple days in advance because I never like to wait for the last
good.
day. And sure enough, we got the rendering the day after.
Always happen.
but if, Mr. Hernandez, if you would have sent it to
Fernandez.
me, it would have been able to have it up tonight, so you
Yeah, we
should
could put it
send
on
it
the-
directly to me, and then I'll make sure everything's where it's
I
supposed
just
to
know
be.
a deadline is deadline. I don't want
We appreciate that. Thank you. All right, so we should expect to see you on October 7th, because you'll meet a deadline for September 18th.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
And September 7th, we will see him
Yeah,
at our site walk.
Well, on the site walk on September 7th. I did want to presume you would be there, but, okay.
Good.
Great. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right. So our next meeting is September 16th. What is we expecting on that agenda now?
Could be any.
You really, I
Well, I'm
don't
just
know.
I'm trying to plan ahead here.
We will
So
have a
10 mile river preserve on.
public hearing
public hearing,
for TMR.
public hearing for DMR, and maybe that's it. Okay, and then October 7th. All right. Any further business for this planning board? Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Seconded by
Second.
Ramon. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned.